we want to welcome you to our online service. We're so thankful that you have taken time to join us for this evening's Bible study. Let us know in the chat box where you're watching from.
Before we begin, we just wanted to remind you that you can connect with us online at www.champ.org. And you can also download our app in the App Store or Google Store. Of course, we would love for you to join us this Sunday on campus for a great worship service and encouraging message from our pastor. We also have some great activities planned for the kids.
If this is your first time with us, we would love to connect. Just text FTG to 281-201-1719 to get connected. If you would like to join us in taking this message around the world, you can partner with us in giving. It's as easy as texting the word GIVE to 281-305-0505 or by going to our website, www.champ.org, and clicking the Give Now.
Again, thank you for joining us online. We pray this Bible study encourages and empowers you.
Good afternoon, Church of Champions. We are so happy about joining with you this evening and sharing in what God is doing and what He has said to us through His mighty and prolific and majestic Word. We are asking you to get involved. We want to hear from you in the chat box. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know how you're doing. We're so thankful for all of our people who have been kept during this season and how God has provided for you and kept His hand upon you and healed you in your body, soul, and spirit. We're rejoicing about every victory, and we want to invite you into a magnificent conversation this evening because we have been in a powerful study regarding our altars and what they mean to us and how important they are for us. So tell your friends right now that we're online. Share this video. If you're watching by YouTube, be sure and click the bell and subscribe and let us know that you're a part of our community, our virtual community. And if you're watching from around the world, all of our friends who are throughout North America and around the world, say hello to us and let us know where you're watching from. I'm joined this afternoon by Alyssa. Alyssa is a young lady in our church, and we are so excited about what God is doing among our teens and young adults. And we're going to spend this afternoon talking about altars and the future of the church, how our young people are dealing with the societies and cultures they're involved in, as well as the big questions that they're asking about life. So we're happy to have Alyssa here, and we're thankful for you being here and the talent that God has given you and all of the things that He's doing for you. You know, we've been in this series called Altars, and we've been talking about and noting the different types of altars that are in our life. And very few people, last week we started a study, and we're looking at that, and we're talking about how to reap far more than you sow. And it's so apropos that we're having this conversation now because the Proverbs, the 13th chapter and the 22nd verse says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the righteous." And this morning, or this afternoon, we want to talk about the importance of what it means to reap far more than we sow. And we're going to look specifically at what it means to leave a legacy or leave a heritage, leave an inheritance to our children's children. One of the altars that we must construct in our family life is the reality that we're going to empower our children to do far more than we ourselves have been able to do. I want my sons and daughters to stand on my shoulders and see farther than I've ever seen in my lifetime. I want to equip them and empower them, and I'm excited about Alyssa and what God has placed upon your heart and the doors that are opening for you, and I'm very, very excited about that. I want to get into it. So you're about to launch a new show called Teen Talk,
yes.
And tell us about it.
So basically, we're starting this Teen Talk to go over topics that teens in my generation, it's hard to talk about with adults or parents, and things that don't come up every day.
Right.
So things such as like stress of school, finding the right group of friends, finding a connection with Jesus, social media standards, and just different things that are really important and really affect people my age.
Right.
And I just want to go over all these topics with other people my age and get their point of view on it, and just have in-depth conversations about this kind of stuff.
That's awesome. So we're creating a channel that's going to be called Teen Talk, And you're going to be featured there. You're going to be hosting that and actually producing that. And so I'm very, very excited because we're going to be reaching into our high schools. We're going to be reaching into your peer group. We're going to be pulling people in here. You already have some guests lined up, anxious to talk to you about the deep questions of life. And it's exciting for us because that's what Alpha is all about, answering the big questions of life. And so our young people have been filled with question regarding this season that we've been living through, and there's so much anxiety going on. There's, tell us a little bit about the things you've encountered. Obviously, school and college has been moved to a virtual platform for many, many people. A lot of students have been in isolation.
Yes.
You yourself were touched by COVID and had to quarantine for a while. So the same stresses that are upon parents and elders and grandparents, I believe that's magnified in our young people.
Yeah.
And so it's important for me as a leader, and especially those in my generation, it's important for us to hear from you so that we can know how to empower you and perhaps be a guide and a mentor to you to make sure that you're successful in living your life for Jesus Christ and bringing Him glory, as well as dealing with the pressures of this current age. So I want to know how I can do that. I want to know what we need to do as a body, a church. What can we do to influence our young people who are in high school, who are going to college, our young adults. And so part of that has been very purposed for us. We've moved into Alpha. We're answering those questions. We have Alpha groups going every Wednesday night all over this campus, and even some out of state. We're thankful for that. But I'm excited about Teen Talk. I'm thankful for the dramatic flair, the enthusiasm that young people have.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions that you've been asked by your peers, by your friends, that are filled with anxiety about what they're seeing? Are they talking about? Do they feel like that the world is coming to an end? Do they feel like Jesus is coming back? What kind of questions are they asking?
I mean, definitely not to an end, but that it'll never go back to the same.
Okay.
So it's just kind of like, well, will we ever get to hang out with a big group and not be told or get hate because, oh, y'all are with a big group, you don't have masks and all this stuff, and it's just like not the same, or like having the question, can I go up and hug this person? Can I go up and do this? And it's just like also brings anxiety to if I can go around these people and feel the same, or is it okay if they're comfortable with this? And I feel like we in our minds think it'll never go back to the same.
So there's anxiety over the reality that right before your eyes, in the middle of your life, when you should be enthusiastic and somewhat carefree, all of societal standards have been re-engineered without you having a say in that, and that can be disquieting. So, so young people are feeling as if we've turned a corner and it's never going back.
Yes.
And so they must be plagued with a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is there a sense that they've lost something, that they lost opportunities, or how are they feeling?
I mean, we always have the hope that like it's fine, like it's gonna be, we'll go back, but then you always have the what if it doesn't?
Yeah.
Or what if this person isn't okay with me, like I said, going up and hugging them.
Right.
Like simple things, or like that opportunities, I feel we still feel we have a chance for those and that they haven't left.
Okay.
But it's just the knowing if this person is comfortable with us doing this, or you know.
Yeah.
But,
so all of the standards, the sociological standards that frame how we conduct ourselves in public are all changing.
Yeah.
And it's very awkward to try to figure that out on the fly. And I think that all of us are there. I mean, I'm, as you know, I've loved to hug people and shake hands. It's just very normal. That's our culture. we've had to police ourselves. We have to restrict ourselves from engaging in that until we find out if people are comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And so this has been a very awkward period for culture in general, and specifically the church. But I'm excited about the fact that young people are noticing that, and people are asking about that.
Yeah.
What are you hearing when you hear young people talking at the in the hall, at the locker room, wherever they're at? What are you hearing young people say about their anxieties?
I feel it could be from anything from school. Like my teacher assigned me this much, and I have this sport to do. I have to go help my mom with this, and it's like anxiety over
Performance?
Yeah, school. Anxiety over the pressure to have these great grades and these great scores in order to be accepted into certain classes or certain colleges, and just a school in general.
Yeah.
Anxiety brings a lot of anxiety, just the pressure of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
The pressure to be perfect.
yes.
Yeah. So I think that's probably been increasing, obviously, with all of the activities, the extracurricular activities that have been enforced upon the daily routines of students. But then you compound that with you guys having to live in a virtual world almost for a long period of time. So you still have to maintain those grades and those opportunities. So if those things open back up, you can take advantage of them.
Yeah.
And yet you're doing it very isolated. That has to bring a lot of anxiety and some discomfort.
I did virtual school for the first semester of this year.
Yeah.
And it was just so much harder keeping up
Okay.
and understanding and actually taking up all the knowledge that I'm being taught, especially when I was quarantined.
Yeah.
When I did get COVID, it was very hard. I could see myself falling behind.
Okay.
Because I couldn't comprehend and understand more online than I actually did in person. I felt like I wasn't learning anything myself, and that I was just there trying to keep the information in and just go take the test really quick.
It's interesting that you say that, because I've always had that conviction. You know, I've done a lot of online studies. I've done a lot of online lecturing, and I know for me, it requires a great deal of conscientious discipline to focus at the same level that I seem to be able to learn things. If I'm in a room with other people, I learn it by osmosis. I think this pandemic has proven just how much we depend on other acuities to inform us of a truth, or validate a truth, or validate a teaching that we're hearing. And I use the mask as an example. I was shocked to learn how much I depended on people's lips to hear clearly.
Yes.
So when I would go into a room or go into to a place of business, and they would speak to me, and they're obviously being careful and cautious and wearing a face mask, I could no longer hear. I had perfect hearing before the pandemic.
Yeah. And I feel like everyone kind of relates to that. Like you'd be in the grocery store asking someone something.
I
and you're
know.
Like, sorry, the mask. I can't hear.
And you feel like, my God, I've gone deaf.
Yeah.
And it's the reality that we are watching other things besides just depending upon the hearing only. Yeah. So, you know, that's how God created us. And I think through the pandemic, I've learned how to appreciate the opportunity to speak freely and to speak openly and to hear people say. And to this day, if I go to a restaurant and they're still wearing masks, I don't hear as clearly as if I'm talking to you without one. So that's an illustration and a metaphor for what you guys have been through, being locked down in a virtual learning experience. And I think for us, all of us, it's been a great time of growth and stretching us, but it's also been a tremendous pressure upon us. And so I was interested in hearing about how students are reacting to that. What are you sensing from not only the questions they're asking, but what about the behaviors they're displaying? Are they're exhibiting? Is there a rise in depression? what are you hearing and sensing from your pool of peers?
I mean, at the beginning of all of it, it was not for me depressing, but just upsetting overall. I know other people, it was probably depressing knowing that you couldn't hang out with your friends and you were just by yourself in your room, didn't really know what to do. I mean, you had your family, but you couldn't go see other family because it was just the fear of the whole thing in general.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that took a toll on like social, like having, once you got back with your friends, it was like, do I know how to socialize? And it was like kind of weird at first, especially going back to school.
Yeah.
But definitely being upsetting, not being to see your friends over the summer and having to be by yourself. Although you have your family, it was just, you wanted to go see your friends.
Well, and you guys have such a beautiful family and so intertwined, you know, with your aunts and their families. And much to my, the same thing for my family. We have a rather large family. And when you can't see that, you know, when you're taken from that for long periods of time, it can be psychologically skewed and create quite the dilemma for balance. So how we reap far more than we sow is a theology that we discussed at length last week, but this week we're talking about practical ways in which we do that. And one of the things that we're excited about, especially our production teams are excited about, is you guys having your own, I'm going to call it a show, but your own blog, whatever, your own broadcast, and you're producing this teen talk, and we're going to use that as an outreach. That's an old term that guys my age use, but we're going to use this as an open door and an opportunity to really plug into young people in a completely different manner. That will give them an opportunity and a platform to talk back to us and find out that Jesus is the answer for every depression, for every need, for everything in their life. What are some other topics that you're hearing about that you think are going to be dynamic for young people that you'll be covering?
Other topics are peer pressure, just having this pressure that if you want to be cool, you need to do this. And it's like, well, actually, no, you don't need to do that. And that's things that people don't talk about. When they have peer pressure, they feel that they have to do this certain thing when you don't.
Right.
And people don't want to talk about it because it's embarrassing, you're not cool, you're boring, and it's like that's not the truth about it. So peer pressure, finding yourself throughout high school, just finding out what you want to do, what your passions are. Right. Which is very stressful. Right. It's like, well, and then having the rush of like, what do you want to do in your future? Like, you need to know now. It's
I
like,
know.
well,
I know. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because when I was obviously growing up, which was a long time ago, it was based upon the rhythms of life, and everybody was different. So, for example, depending on the home you grew up in and the purpose-driven parents you had, you would see people that were finding their way even into their 30s. You know, they weren't certain. They would change their major in college 2 or 3 times, trying to discover what they wanted to be. Yeah. And they had a certain liberty to do that. I don't know that it's wise to do that, but they had a liberty that they could explore that. Yeah. It seems to me that kids are being pressured in elementary school to start thinking about a specific track that they need to follow. And I think that's doing a great deal of damage. So what is a lesson that you've learned that's freed you from that pressure during the pandemic? I think I think we get to the place where somewhere in our life we have to go, you know what, I don't care. Yeah. Over the quarantine, I realized that I was holding myself back from what I wanted to do in the future. And although most people, they don't know yet what they want to do, I had my mindset on what I want to do. But it was like the social pressure of, that's not cool, you can't do that. And I kind of realized that I shouldn't care what other people think. Yeah. And they shouldn't keep me from doing what I want to do and what my passion is. So I kind of realized that I shouldn't listen to them, and if they don't like what I'm doing, then
I mean, I'm not going to see you in a year. I'm going to college. So what you think doesn't really affect what I'm doing.
So tell me about that's a phenomenal thing to discover at your, especially your age. I'm convinced that the sooner you can learn that lesson, the freer you are.
Yeah.
What happened to you when you made that decision? I no longer care how other people define me. Were you sensed with or overwhelmed with a sense of peace?
Yes, I felt so held back from what I wanted to do because of these other people and that I couldn't be myself.
Yeah.
And when I finally, it just like one day I was like, well, I don't really care.
Yeah.
And so I started getting into doing my theater, and I started going and auditioning for shows and getting casted for them, and I enjoyed it so much. I felt at home.
Yeah.
I felt like I finally was doing what I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
And when people found out, they're like, you're in theater. I'm like, yeah. I'm in a show. You want to go see it? Just kind of advertising it now. I was like, yeah, I'm in it. You can go see me.
That's awesome. So I'm interested, since you're moving into that, how are you disciplining your mind? And what has your Christian background helped you do to start disciplining your mind to memorize scripts?
Oh gosh.
What does that routine look like for you?
It kind of just starts with me repeating
Yeah.
over and over again and making it is a story, but making it real life story. So if it's me going to talk to this person about a certain subject, I'm gonna act like I'm gonna repeat it over and over in my head. And I'm gonna repeat this conversation as if it's real life. Or I'll have my mom, I'm like, okay, say these lines and I'm gonna say them back to you. So just kind of repeating it, but then also having to make it realistic when I do it and not sound like it was a script. And I know I'm like, okay, my next line is this. It's like, it's actually a conversation.
Yeah. You're making the character come alive.
Yes.
So that same principle operates in theology or the study of Scripture, especially doctrine. If you can pour yourself into the text and speak from a first-person vantage and make the story your own, then the Bible comes alive. And I think too many people read it as a distant relative or a distant manuscript. They're reading from it, but they're never putting themselves in and engaging in it, you know. So I think that's a beautiful trait, and that's a beautiful discipline that you're building in your life. And I've always been intrigued by actors and actresses who can memorize volumes of information, and they learn that discipline. And I appreciate that. That's part of the arts, the hard work behind the art, you know. And I was reading something the other day about Jack Nicholson, and I remembered when I was young how prolific he was on screen, and it was because he owned the character that he was portraying. You know, another a great showman, if you will, actor that I loved, and of course many people don't like him, but was Clint Eastwood. You know, he was one of the guys that came on screen and could say very little, and what he said most of the time he was whispering, and it was just it pulled you in, you know. So I wonder what would happen if your generation would take that same love for this script, move it into, and I've started trying to do that as well, move it into a modern vernacular. I use the Passion Translation now. I use the Message version a lot now. And it's because I want to speak your language and make it come alive for you. And, you know, when I was young, there was only one translation, and it happened in 15, 16. But, but we moved into a period of time where kids and young people and young adults, they want this word to come alive. Yeah. They want it to be authentic. And they don't want it to be a story about someone else. They want to know, I'm living in that story. Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing. What are some other things you guys are going to talk about?
I have things such as, I don't know if we went over this, finding a connection with Jesus.
That's awesome.
I feel like this is really important for me because although I have people that feel that they can speak and talk to Jesus and hear his word, I feel most teens don't talk about how they don't know how to find that connection. Although we strive to have this connection with Jesus, and we've always grown up in this Christian environment, going to church, it was more of I want to have that connection as well.
Right.
I want to feel like I could hear him and feel like he's with me.
That's awesome.
And I don't think teens want to talk about that, although they're like, I'm Christian. It's like, well, I don't feel I have this connection with him yet, and I want to get to that connection with him.
Right. That's so important, because that's the difference between having a Christian background, or what we would call a denominational background that you're born into, but you never have a personal experience with. And everyone has to have their own experience with Jesus Christ.
And it's like, although I in my heart I know Jesus is with me, and he helps me go throughout the day and feel confidence, and he gives me all this motivation, and and I pray to him. It's like I see these stories of this is how I knew he was with me, and it's like I'm just waiting for my experience on when I can feel that he's there with me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. What are your friends saying about the Teen Talk broadcast, and are they excited to plug in?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
They're excited that I'm finally, there's this new show to talk about these topics, because they're not talked about.
That's good.
And it's topics people, I feel, talk to themselves about, but they don't know that other teens can relate to them about it.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun getting to go on to these topics with other people, and
so
finally
good.
getting to hear their side of it.
Yes.
And relating to them with it.
Yes. So you're really creating a new, I say new, but you're creating this genre, you're creating this show, Teen Talk, that's going to be opposite of, you have a huge following on TikTok, and Facebook and Instagram, and all of these people put up their best, or they create these hyperactive videos for entertainment purposes and these other worldly things. You guys are really going opposite, and you're distilling down and getting real, saying we're tired of the makeup and the drama.
And that's another topic, is the social media standards, that you have to look like this to be pretty, or you have to have this kind of sense of humor to be funny. It's all these standards, like, well, you can't post that unless you put a filter over it first, and you make it seem like you're living your best life.
Right.
When it's like, pictures only say so much. You put the best pictures out there. You aren't going to post the worst picture of you.
That's right.
You're not going to post bad things. You only post good to make your life seem perfect.
Yes.
So it's kind of going into.
So your generation is saying, we're tired of that. We want to know the real.
Yes. And I feel like there's so many videos out there that relate to that. Like, well, this is actually how I look without filters, because you don't need filters. But in reality, it's like, well, I can't do that, because then I won't be pretty, or I won't be this standard we have.
That's so good. So in addressing these topics, you're actually healing young people and keeping them from condemnation, depression, self-loathing, because they're going to get a proper concept of what true beauty is about.
Yeah, just kind of going over that it's okay to not do what this big group of people want you to do, or it's okay to do things without feeling judged, or you don't have to have other people's approval.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited about that, and I want you to know that the entire Church of Champions family and community is involved in this. We're excited about that. We're going to watch you develop this talk show and have these young people in here, and I would love for this place to be filled with young people. I see this thing getting so large that you could perhaps have some sort of event where you fill this place up and we talk to them live and have conferences and whatever. But I don't think there's any limits to it. I think you're an influencer. I think your generation is an influencer. And on behalf of everyone my age, we've made a significant contribution to making sure you guys are set up to carry the gospel forward, to be what God's called you to be, to achieve everything you want to achieve, and see His Word come alive in your life, and to be familiar with, to be comfortable around the altars of sacrifice that we've made for you. I think that's the greatest form of honor, is when you recognize the price of sacrifice that your mom and dad have made for you, that your grandparents have made for you. Of course, you have a godly great grandmother that is she's a powerhouse, and if she starts praying, you better get ready. Something's going to happen. So I think when you take all of that heritage and when you take the legacies that they've left you and they weave into your life, and then you do what you're doing, and that is you find your voice and you find your purpose and you stand up above that.
Yes.
I know for me, I'm cheering you on. I'm behind you 100%. I know your mom is excited.
Yes.
And we can't wait to see what God does with you. And I want to encourage all of you to support Alyssa, support this channel. It's going to be one of the channels in the YouTube, one of our channels on our YouTube site. I want you to share it. I want you to get people, because our young people need to hear an authentic word. And that's what Alyssa is going to be producing. We're going to be talking about subjects that matter to them and their questions that they're asking. We want to see God answer them, and we want to be a resource for them. And so a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And that's what an altar of reaping looks like when you're sowing a seed. Today I've sown a seed, but tomorrow the harvest that we reap is so much larger. It's far beyond anything that I can imagine or think, because God takes what little I give him. He presses it down, he shakes it together, and I believe that we're going to have an entire community of teens and young adults come out of Northwest Houston, because this young lady has purposed to give her life to what God has called her to be, and he's empowered her to be. He's influenced her, he's shaped her, he's put his personality within her, and he's given her gifts and talents to be exploited by his gospel for his good word. Now, what would happen if all of us would join with her and lend our talents and lend our support and spread the word? I believe that God could use this to change an entire generation for his glory. So we love you. We thank God for you being here tonight. Let us know where you've been watching from. Let us know how you're going to help launch this new channel, Teen Talk, at the Church of Champions. We want it to be spread out. We want everybody to hear about it. We want you to even, why don't you type in some subject matters that you would like to hear, some questions maybe you have, or your kids have, or your grandchildren have. Type that in the chat box. Let us know what is prevalent in your home and in your neighborhood, and we want to answer those. We're going to have different demographics. We're going to have people from all ethnicities. We're going to have kids from every age group, all part of this fabulous Teen Talk show, and we can't wait to see what God's doing with it. And it's going to take place here in the next few weeks, so get ready. We're going to be advertising it. We're going to be sharing it with you. And you're going to have a fabulous time telling your young people, and you're going to tell your grandchildren, our church, our community is invested in you. And we're going to set you up for the victory that God has already ordained for your life. We love you. We thank God for you. And we cannot wait to see you here at the Church of Champions this weekend for an incredible time in the presence of God.
Hey, thanks so much for being here with us today. Make sure to stay connected with us throughout the week online at champ.org and on Facebook and Instagram at Church of Champions Houston. We believe God has something unique to say to you, and our hope is that you feel his love stronger today than ever before. Thanks again for being with us. Have a great weekend.